Thank you for joining us on Student Docs. I'm your host, Carole Adrienne. I am a documentary filmmaker and writer. And today we are going to discuss something of mega importance to anybody making a documentary, thinking about it, filming archival footage of your family. This is really important. The camera is the heart, the backbone, and the core of every visual medium: film, television, video, stills. And we are so lucky today. We have a guest I've wanted to interview for a really long time. Kevin Hackenberg is a powerful visual storyteller. He's a producer, a director, and a cinematographer who works with all kinds of cameras. He owns a production company called Get Kinetic, and he works with some pretty high-end people, famous actors, athletes, executives, media icons, and tells all kinds of stories. So, Kevin, thank you so much for being with us today. And one thing I've always wanted to ask you is about your philosophy of seeing with the camera.
Wow, awesome. Well, that introduction, I had to look around and make sure I was the right person in the room. Very honored, and honored to have that all be kind of true. I've been in the film and video space, working in film video for nearly 30 years. Since 1995 was when I got out of college and started on my first feature film. And there's so many things about the motion picture business, the motion picture industry. But you're right, the camera is a pretty big player in it. People come to me all the time and want to know how to tell a story with a camera. And the first thing I say is, if it's going to be a silent film, the camera is the number one thing. If it's going to be a talkie and you're going to have audio, like, hire a good sound person. So,
yes,
good sound is, very hard, paramount. Yeah. But the camera, we're here to talk about the camera. That's my specialty. So my philosophy on, I guess what does my eye see? How does my eye work?
Yes.
I think what's interesting about the camera is that there's a frame, and we're all, even as novices with the camera, we're all getting used to it now, especially in this Zoom age, where we take and we move the camera around to find what's the best background, what's the best thing. And there's a frame here. There's a frame that we're all looking in. You see a lot of cinematographers and directors holding up their hands like this or like this. We're creating a little frame to see in. And what's inside the frame? We just close up with the eyes, or close up the head, or full body. And inside that frame, if that frame is vertical, like it's we're having an iPhone, we're doing a vertical film, that's my favorite. Or if we're doing something more traditional widescreen, or even more traditional square, 4:3, or something more cinematic, super widescreen. Whatever that frame is, picking a frame to tell your story in is very important. Should it be narrow and tall, or square or wide? And then what are you trying to tell, and what do you put inside the frame, and what do you keep outside the frame? And that's very important to lining up things, finding those places where everything lines up. Today, I'm on vacation in the Outer Banks for this recording, and I decided to come up with this loft where I knew I would have good soft lighting. And my original shot when I got on Zoom was like over here. And I was like, oh, you know what, kind of this thing distracts me, or this behind my head kind of cuts in. And I said, what if I move the camera around? And, I found something where I found an angle where I have something of interest over here, something of interest over there, and my head is framed in this little kind of like space. And so it's all about framing and moving the camera around and moving your body with the camera around to find different lineups. On a feature film set, we do blocking first, and the actors get to pretend they're in a theater space, and they just get to have the whole set to themselves. The director is kind of telling them what the scene happens in the scene, and the cinematographer typically watches the blocking rehearsal, and then we'll make some notes about maybe, hey, let's try this. And then what we do is called a lineup. And the lineup involves the camera and whatever actors are going to be in the shot. And then we do, maybe it's a stand-in for the first lineup. And then we prop all around them. We take care of all the things in the background. We do the lighting. So the lineup is a very important part of how I see the world and how I tell stories with the camera, and how I capture what's going on in my brain for the story into the camera lens.
You use a lot of different types of cameras. I mean, you use stationary cameras, you use Steadicam, and later on in the show, we're going to talk about you also pilot your own drones.
Yeah.
So do you feel that the camera, I mean, we hear the camera doesn't lie, but do you think it does? I mean, can something be manipulated by the angle at which it's shot?
Absolutely. There's a process in filmmaking called cheating. And what we do is typically you film the wide shot. You line up the wide shot first. The wide shot's always the most complicated because you're seeing everything. You're seeing the world. So you kind of do the shot first. It's the most hard, which is, propping out the whole room. And then you go into your close-up. Whatever close-up makes sense. Whatever close-up you don't have to change the background for. And then when you do a turnaround, when you have to turn around on the camera and see a wall you've never seen before, that's where you get the opportunity, especially if you go in tight, you get the opportunity to cheat. For instance, at Christmas time, for our nonprofit Funny and Amen, we did a Christmas COVID carols, COVID Christmas carols. I'm actually in the piece. I wrote it and produced it, and my friend Rachel Forey directed it. And we had one very large Christmas tree around a little baby grand piano. And when we did the turnaround to focus on the piano player's reaction shots, we only had one large Christmas tree. But we turned the piano and pretended we had a two. So what's interesting is you can do a cheat, but you have to, when you do the cheat and turn the world around, you have to remember eye lines. There's a lot of trickery to it, and the first time you do a cheat, if you're a film student, you might get it wrong. You might get the eye lines wrong. But with a little learning, you can figure out how to cheat, and the audience doesn't know.
There's a clip we have of your work, which is not cheating. And this fascinates me. We're used to seeing long scenes in movies that actually are cut together and edited together. But you shot a music video with a Steadicam, which is one long shot. It's more than 2.5 minutes, this thing. And this is just you. You have to it's hard for me to remind myself all the time, this is one long shot. And so we're going to run this in and out just so you can get a sense of Kevin. So you're following these singers and actors, right? And then you're going into different spaces with them. You're really, it's a pretty remarkable little piece of film.
Let me just set it up and say it's not just me. I was only the camera operator. My job that day was to move, pan, and tilt the camera. That's a small piece of choreography, no doubt. While wearing this was a Red camera in the early days of Red, so it was a heavy Red camera. But attached to the camera, there's a wireless follow focus. Attached to the camera, there's a wireless video transmitter. And so there are many people also working with me on the camera. There are many people involved in lighting. You'll see these many rooms that you talk about. Some of the rooms are being created on the fly. This is all done on a stage. And so some of the walls and everything were pre-produced and pre-choreographed. So yeah, I can only take credit on this project for moving, panning, and tilting the camera. The choreography, the director, was a really beautiful, great, wonderfully produced music video.
I think teamwork is one of my absolute favorite things about this whole process. But on the other hand, now let's say for somebody who's in school, does not have access to great cameras, but has a smartphone. And we've had some students on the show who shot some impressive stuff on their phones, edited it on iMovie. What about if I'm just shooting on my phone? What's your advice?
Oh, absolutely. There's so many great tools, and some of them are right in our pockets. So many great people that I know that don't have any background in cinematography, any background in video production or filmmaking, and are doing great work just with their iPhone and iMovie and putting out great content. So there's nothing holding you back right now. Nothing. It's so wonderful. And there's very inexpensive camera lens attachments for your phone. There's inexpensive gimbals that act like a Steadicam to move your phone around and get smooth tracking shots. Yeah, there's really, the sky is the limit when it comes to what your phone can do. And then you go to Best Buy and buy a small drone. And that, again, now you're back to the sky is not the limit anymore.
What are your favorite types of cameras to shoot on? I mean, I've seen pictures of you with giant things on booms and leaning in with, I don't even know what the arrangement was, but you sure got the shot. What do you like shooting on best?
The Red and the Arri Alexa and the Sony Venice are the video cameras that are at the top of the game right now for creating, Netflix and Amazon kind of worthy content.
Is that like 4K?
Some of those cameras will go up to 8K even. But it's more about the latitude sometimes that exists, or the lens options you get to put on some anamorphic lenses onto an Alexa or a Red or like a Sony Venice. Those are, the higher end systems. Now they do cost more to own or rent. I'm a proud co-owner of an Arri Alexa, which I think is a really wonderful camera. But we just did a project that's being pitched, an episodic that's being pitched. We shot on the Sony Venice, and another great camera. It has other great, wonderful features to it. So there's a lot of great tools out there to use, and every project, for many reasons. One, creative, what the camera looks like, what it can do, how small it can get, what lenses are available to it. Budget, of course, is a big factor in deciding what camera you're going to use. But every camera is just a tool in the toolbox. It's great to have some fancy tools to make film that kind of stand out and look at the top of the game. But at the same time, back to the process of storytelling, process of image creation. So there's a lot of tools that you can use, including your iPhone.
What you said earlier about framing the shot, so I can see where that would apply if you are using your phone to shoot. So you getting a vertical shot, or you're turning it on its side for the wider scenic. So do all those rules pretty much apply, those framing rules, to if you are simply shooting with a smartphone?
Yeah, and there's some things you can, there's a visual language that started with the first film camera. The first photograph ever created started adding to the visual language that we all understand and we all kind of refer to. And so there are a lot of history of cinema that everybody should know. And, when you're trying to make a Western, shooting a Western vertically is possible. But if you wanted to shoot a Western, had a really wide frame, that's going to allude back to other Westerns in a CinemaScope style. There are other parts of those Westerns, the actor, the clothing, the lighting, the high noon, shooting under bad lighting where the sun's beating down, the shadows are across the face. There's other motifs that are going to play in there, But the framing is also one of those motifs. Early in my days on a movie set, I worked as a grip under, on Night Shyamalan movies, and the crew would say, "Hey, I'd ask what kind of shot is the next shot. I wanted to know if certain things were in and out of the frame." And someone said, "Oh, the next shot is a cowboy shot." We weren't making Western. And I had to ask, like, what does that mean? What does a cowboy shot mean? And it means that the shot is not head to toe, but head to almost just above the knee is where the bottom of the framing occurs. And I said, why is that called a cowboy shot? And they said, so you can include the gun on the holster. And so it's interesting just what that, even behind the scenes, a Western, for instance, got the vernacular, the cowboy shot, into the film crew mentality. So if you see a shot now in a movie where someone's holding a briefcase, at their side, and the shot is from knee to the head, maybe someone on the crew said, "Hey, let's frame up a cowboy shot of our antagonist, or our protagonist, or of an extra."
I am so going to be looking at old cowboy movies tonight now. That's like one of the things that once you know that, you know it forever. The cowboy shot, get the gun in there. I thought you were going to like get the boots or the horse, but no.
Oh, yeah, those are, they're definitely, we need the insert of the boots and the insert of the, the what do you call this thing? The stirrup, the little thing on the back of the boot. The horse, making a look at all those things, that feed into that. Into a Western scene, of course. And so there are, some neo-Westerns or sci-fi Westerns that, that aren't in the Old West, but have that desolate what do you call it? Standoff. A standoff.
Oh, yeah. The high noon, right?
High noon. But awesome.
Well, I am wild to ask you this next question about drones, because you gave me a clip that we're gonna look at in and out here of drone footage that is just really breathtaking. And I know it's a lot to break down, but now what are the situations where using a drone to shoot is the way to go?
What's interesting, when you first pull out a drone, everybody on set, the one question we get is like, how high can it go? And with certain clearances, we've had drones up to, I've had drone up to 1,600 feet in the air. However, at that height, there is not a lot of detail. You're just seeing, you're not getting detail, and you're getting just the landscape. And it's what's the really sweet spot for a drone is somewhere above where a crane could go, a camera crane, which a camera crane can typically go 30 feet in the air, up to where a helicopter might be a best suitable tool. And that might, helicopters, because of, bringing them down around trees or around buildings, might be a little bit more difficult or noisy or expensive, of course, or dangerous to bring down. So a drone is kind of like an extension of a crane. And so there's sometimes when we're doing a certain shot that someone will say, let's get a drone to do that shot. A drone is a great tool, an amazing tool for following a car down a road, or following a boat. But there are certain shots, if you're trying to come into an actor's face and then hold perfectly still, where that might be a better shot for a crane, because the camera floating in the air, even though it's GPS controlled, it still might sway a foot under that GPS control. And so if you want to come down and have a nice steady shot, a locked off shot, you may want to choose to hire a crane operator, bring in like a 30-foot crane, which when it swings could give you about a 50-foot move. So there's a lot of, knowing the tools and how to use them, when to use them is the right thing. Now, drones are amazing, and yeah, there's just doing an orbit around a piece of architecture or around a car traveling down. They're great for telling stories, and they provide us, smaller budget filmmakers opportunities where only helicopters could provide opportunities for shots, establishing shots that you might have saw in like a 1970s, 1990s film. Now in the 2000s, 2020s, we can get those opening shots very inexpensively.
Oh. Now, if I'm a student and I want to shoot footage for my film with a drone, can I buy a drone online and go out and shoot? What's involved?
Yeah, so to become a recreational drone pilot, you can just go to Best Buy. You can buy a small kit. I was just recommending one to a camera assistant on a shoot. A small kit, small DJI Mavic will come for like $1,000 and it'll shoot 4K video. It'd be amazing. To do it professionally and safely, I would recommend that you take a drone safety course, and especially if you want to do it commercially, become a certified drone pilot.
So you need a license.
You do need a license to operate a drone commercially, and that includes for filmmaking purposes. And so that's really great because you register your drone with the FAA and you get a license yourself, and you get a lot of other, in order to pass that test, to get the license, you get a lot of safety background that you might not get otherwise. Before the FAA had established their rules, I had drones and was flying around. I've had a lot of experience as someone who's been on a lot of sets and been in charge of safety, in my former history as a key grip. And so there were a lot of safe practices that we put in even before the FAA issued their mandatory licensing. But to get licensed, and you'll learn a lot about how to communicate with other aircraft, and you need to know that, because even in cities like Philadelphia, you might be flying near the rivers and need to know how to communicate with the helicopters that are coming in and out of the hospitals, or just making sure that they know that you're going to be flying in the area that day, so that they're aware, and so there's no accidents.
I would think that would be a tricky part of it. You really have to be careful about what's going on in the airspace where you're going to be filming. Now, when you're piloting the drone, are you seeing what it is seeing on a monitor?
Yes. It's really difficult to pan into the camera without seeing what the camera is doing, especially being far away from it. So yes, most of the drones we fly are DJI drones, and so they all have a downlink, so you can see it on your device. Sometimes we'll fly heavy lift, which means we'll put up an Arri Alexa or a red camera in the air on a heavy lift drone, and then we have wireless video to so that the director and the cinematographer can approve of the shot. Sometimes we have, on our higher end drone that we have in house, our Inspire 2, we can operate tandem, where one person will pilot the drone in and around the airspace, and the other person will pan and tilt the camera. That's especially useful. We have one client that is a propeller manufacturer, and we do a lot of high-speed boat chases, I guess, and where we're flying the drone very low against the water and in and around the boat. So in those situations, I'm typically piloting, and my assistant and camera operator, Derek, is typically panning and tilting the camera in those scenarios. Sometimes we'll get hired, and the cinematographer of the project will want to be the camera operator, and that's great. Other times we'll get hired and they just want, hey, this is a shot we think we can do with one operator, and sometimes I can pan, tilt, and fly the drone if it's a more simple shot.
Well, it is some really, really exciting footage. I always wonder if the camera op watching ever gets dizzy when the drone is up there.
Sometimes there's a couple ways to fly as a camera operator. One is to put on, just have a monitor in front of you. Another one is to put on FPV goggles and pretend you're in the drone itself. So definitely you can.
Ooh.
The first couple of times you wear FPV goggles, you can lose your bearings, your inertia bearings, I guess, because you're sitting still, but you see everything flying around you.
Oh, #goals. That is really cool. Oh, Kevin, thank you so much. I hope you'll come back and visit with us again. I know you do all kinds of fascinating stuff, but that was like really exciting. And there are so many ways to get your story visually, and that has really kicked it up a bunch of notches. So Kevin's website is get-kinetic.com. We'll put that up at the end of the show, and you can see other parts of his work. Well, thank you so much, and I really appreciate your taking time from your vacation to be with us today. That was enlightening and inspirational. So I look forward to talking to you soon, and thank you so much. Please join us again next time on Student Docs.